we have shot videos about this report several times, and something goes wrong. A few times the video has turned out to be mute and to be soundless. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the mission to Trafalgar Square and Croydon, the Witch Fest, on the 18th of November this year. Yeah, this video should have been edited and out eons ago, but the devil has been fighting, and I let me explain the reason why I believe why. That day, the devil was really angry. We had come from a month of rest and not doing anything, and that was our first mission out, and the stakes couldn't be higher. A lot was happening in London. When we got there, we realized there was police everywhere, and police had been drafted in from other parts of the country. So much so, I spoke to some of the guys at Charing Cross, station, tube station, or railway station, whichever one. And basically, they were all from North Wales. They'd all come from Wrexham. But a lot of activities were happening. But then again, we realized going in that the space that we normally occupy had been taken by Christmas markets, and well, that kind of normal. But basically, we couldn't find any foothold in order to do this work, to set up and be able to do. But we chose to go by the church opposite the gallery at Trafalgar Square, and basically we were moved on because they said that was private land. I even asked the security guy, I said, well, where does your demarcation end? Because where it ends, that should truly be public land. He said, I can't tell you that. And then we just stood beside, went aside a little bit, and he said he was happy with where we are and it was public land. He was saying, ask the council, but I don't think we need to ask the council each time we go out. It is our land. We pay for these things. We pay our taxes. We pay our council tax. So it is our real estate. We own it, and the council runs it on the behalf of we, the people. And that's what I was trying to explain to him, but he was saying you need to ask for permission. I said, well, I don't need to ask for permission from the council. All I need to know is where is our public land. And he was not very cooperative, but he came to me and said, oh yeah, where you said, are you all right where you are? I said, well, whatever it is. But where we moved to, there was one of the versions of the Eastern religions. I think it's a peculiar type of Buddhism. And these are people who have got a claim that they are being persecuted in China. And I think some of them have even been, according to their claims, have been used for body parts. They've been mutilated, and they do a version of yoga and meditation, and they were doing that. So basically, we were in the ground, in the enchanted ground, where, because any Eastern religion is spiritualism, and spiritualism is the belief in the worship of the dead or through the dead, and that's paganism in every respect. And that's what's being funneled into the world right now, especially as the devil has changed his tact and put the less obvious sides of that devil worship, demon worship. Because speaking to the dead, we know that the dead are dead and they can't talk. And if any dead speak, know that is not your relative. It's none other than the fallen angels, the devils. And so we were right there sharing ground with them. And they, don't get me wrong, they've got every right to be there because we believe in liberty of conscience. But with that liberty of conscience comes great responsibility. And our responsibility as those that have known truth is to let people who are in darkness, in the outer darkness, to know what is truth, to pronounce a freedom to the captives, and like Christ says, that they shall know the truth, and the truth shall set them free. And whoever the Son maketh free is free indeed. Our role in that freedom of speech is to contend for every inch of ground, giving the sound gospel, the everlasting gospel. And that's what we tried to do. But we found it was very difficult. The books were not moving. Some people even assumed that we were probably doing the same thing, and that was confusion. So we decided to move up to Monument, that is next to it. But in the meantime, all that movement, I realized that all our phones did not have any network. So I don't know what was happening, but maybe the government had particularly jammed the networks so that people don't communicate. And there was a lot of things happening, the Palestinian-Israeli protests, and maybe they were trying to use the networks to try and impede the organization of any kind of protest or whatever it was. But the city was on high alert. And then I've been trying to call a few friends who were coming in, and some of them are not too acquainted with driving in London. They were very frustrated. I couldn't quite speak to them. We couldn't hear each other even when they answered the phone. But eventually I had put my live location, but because the internet was weak, and some of the roads were closed, it took quite a lot. And basically they eventually got there. I was speaking to one of them, Brother Shingi, who was saying I was very, very frustrated, and he said he had even gone maybe into some bus lanes or whatever, because it was quite hectic. He might have picked up a few tickets, he said, but he said he spoke to one person, and that one person made all the difference, and his frown was turned upside down into the most glorious smile. I spoke to Brother Peter, who had a similar experience, and basically it was a very positive experience. What did we do? We didn't get to give away a lot of books. It was quite a few books. We normally give quite a few hundreds, if not even over 1,000, and in the past we've given thousands of books in one day. This was just maybe a few tens, a few hundreds, maybe 200 less. But it was a very interesting experience. A policeman came on a bike with some cones that they used to block roads. There were 3 of them. I went to him, I spoke to him. He managed to get, it was a transport police with a bike. And I managed to give him a book. But he was stood there for more than an hour or two, just as if we were doing nothing. And then later on in the evening, there was a bit of an incident, which to our reading looked like it was a drill. And they moved us, they just started shouting, and we moved things about. And in minutes we had moved the gazebos and all that. And then they extended the cordon, they put a police cordon with those plastic things, police line, do not cross. And that cordon, they extended it again, but by the time they extended it, we were already packing. And given we were supposed to have gone to Croydon in the afternoon, but by 6 this was happening, and we had not gone. The devil had just held back. It reminded me a little bit about Daniel's prayer, where in chapter 10 we see the great controversy unfolding, the spiritual warfare, where Daniel is praying, and for 21 days, even though God had already answered the prayer with a yay, and yet Gabriel says 21 days after that, the prince of Persia, who is none other than the devil himself, working upon the minds and the hearts of the kings of Persia, he said he resisted me 21 days, but Michael, the archangel, helped me, and that's none other than Christ. So it took Christ leaving what he was doing, because Gabriel, the angel of prophecy, had failed to deliver the message because the devil resisted him. That tells you the epitome of the great controversy. And we felt on this day That was a very hot battle, given that we were going to be giving out books at a witch fest and showing in Croydon that witchcraft is really of the devil and is nothing that we need to be entertaining as we do now. They are putting it everywhere. It's on Hollywood. It's in Hollywood, and it's in Disney. All these things, they are promoting witchcraft in broad daylight. But this one was a little bit of another 10, which is basically they were promoting it in broad daylight, and they're targeting especially children in this witchcraft. But I have worked with some of them. A lot of them end up suffering mentally and being in mental health homes and basically being sick in the head. Some of them have done a little bit of incantations and all that, but they end up being sick and unable. Some of them are children in school and unable to go to school, and some of them will be trying to commit suicide and all that. Witchcraft is indeed dangerous, and I can see why the devil was fighting this double-barreled mission, the Trafalgar Square and Croydon mission. That goes just to show that the spiritual, the great controversy is indeed a reality, and we are in it, and it's reaching a close. It's time that we now need to accept the power of the Holy Spirit and to accept Christ, and He, the creator of the universe, whose power is just in His word alone. He can speak life into our life situation. He is the one who gave Abraham, the father of faith, his son, when he was, for all intents and purposes, dead in the flesh, and yet he got a son when he was over 100, and Sarah was way past a due date. It is Christ that we need to now hold on to, because He is our only hope, the way, the truth, the life, and our victory. Thank you.
As always, it's always good. Besides all that, it's always fantastic. And I'm so glad I met the people that I spoke to, and I saw others engage with others. So the seeds are being sown and the books are going out. It's quality, not quantity. And
amen.
I'm so glad that I spoke to the people that I spoke to. A Muslim man and a couple that stick out to me more than anyone else. And I try not to get bogged down with people who are going to keep me bogged down for too long, because there are always those. So you've got to try and be polite and move on. I think that's one of our disciplines, absolutely. And I really enjoyed talking to the Muslim man who knew a lot of things, but it was all mixed up. And he had a bit of respect for me and how I was explaining the book and things like that. So he was definitely curious. He really wanted to read the book. And he really wanted to know and see the banner out. So we went round to the Trafalgar Square banner with the Sunday law on one side, the Sunday on the other side, and the Seventh-day Sabbath on the other side. And he took photographs of each side, which I was pleased. So I was very happy about that.
Trafalgar Square, it's a very secular audience. That's what I would say. There are people shooting off to the theatres, do their shopping. Whereas the protests, you've got a lot of thinking people there, and they're a bit more open. And so what's this about? But there were particularly two people that we came across round where we were, round the corner, and one of them, it turned out he was actually a pastor of a church in North London, and I couldn't believe how. I would even say aggressive. He was on the attack, and I do believe we're going to get a lot more of this, because when he saw the banners there about the seventh day, I don't know if he'd already asked someone who we were, but then he was on the attack. When I I got back to the table, and he's talking about grace, but he didn't want to discuss it. I found that with another person as well. The thing is, you can carry on a conversation for quite a while if it's going to be a conversation, if it's a two-way thing. But
and
when
they're
they
taking
start,
their time to actually listen, yes.
yeah, when they start bombarding you with the criticism, and they're actually wrong with it, and you'd like to explain that, and they get louder and louder, that is not good when you've got a table of our books there. So we walk away. We have to learn how to deal with that. But yeah, I couldn't believe. And I said, you were a pastor of the church, and it's that. Yeah, he didn't want to really communicate. So we can see that early on very often, and we've got to say, look, this needs to stop, because we don't want to get into an argument.
No,
we're not there for putting any argument. We're just there to discuss with people, and we have enough of those good discussions with people to know the difference.
One man, I reckon he's an Ethiopian, because I know how Ethiopians look like. So he was looking at the Daniel, and he was looking at the banner, the side of Daniel, and the other side where you have Greater Biden and Pope and all the reformers there. So he was looking at it, and he was shaking his head and kind of, shaking his head and smiling dismissively, like we don't know what we're doing. And obviously, I went to him and I asked him, would you like some help? Would you like me to explain what you're seeing on the banner? And he said, yeah, go ahead if you can. So I tried all my best, explaining, the statue and everything. And he said, well, I think all these are just made up stories. These are just stories, there's nothing to it, it's just men writing things and everything. And I said, well, it could be, but obviously we have to examine. Even if somebody has written something, it's incumbent, for us to examine what this person has written, and if it's it's worthwhile, seek for more, but if not, refute it. And I said to him, look, for sure that he was an older man, maybe in his late 60s. I said, you have your ancestors, your grandfathers, your great-great-grandfathers, these are people you never met, but they existed, because he was trying to challenge the history, that all this is nonsensical, and who can believe it and everything. And he appeared, because I know Ethiopians are mainly Orthodox, and basically they believe that they are the oldest of the Christians, in the world, and that their version of the Bible is the truest version. So he tried to challenge me on the Bible. He said, how many Bibles are there? Because he said that the Bibles, whatever is written in the Bibles clash at all. Who can believe things that clash at all? I asked him for evidence of those clashing, statements or writings, but he was not able to produce. And he said there's so many versions of the Bible. I said, there's not many Bibles as such, but what it is, there are many translations, so that people can have them in their own languages, as opposed to many Bibles speaking different things and all that. But I said, we as a people prefer the King James Bible because it's the closest to the manuscripts. And we transcended to other things. And he questioned truth. He said he only stands for truth. So I asked him, what is truth then? Of which he said, truth is anything that you convince your mind to be right. Okay, I said, okay, sounds good. So I said, okay, if I choose to be a robber and that's my lifestyle, and I know that's the only way I can earn a living, if I convince myself that that's the only way, so is that the truth you're talking about? Oh, no, that's not the truth I'm talking about. It's something that is right. And I said, but if you say something is right, then how do you come up with that statement, say something is right? Because if you say something is right, something else is wrong. You know, what's your foundation for coming up with such a statement? And for which afterwards he said, you know what, young man, I think you need to learn. You need to learn a lot. And I said, yeah, I'm willing to learn a lot. And I said, every day is a school day. You know, whoever says they've learned enough, and he stops learning, then you become a fool. And so basically, it's at that time that he parted, he left and went to some other young men that he was, I think he was looking after. Maybe he's a supervisor or something like that of, I think an eatery or a hotel. There's something there behind us. I don't know what he was, but there was something behind us. Yeah. So I saw him gesturing to those three young men, pointing at us and saying that, just trying to make as if we are crazy people. So I went to the young man and I said, is there anything that you'd like me to explain about what we are doing here on the streets and everything? So the two young men who were kind of Asian looking, they just drifted away and went back into the building. But there was another man who remained there. I go to greet him. He asked me where I am from. I say I am from Kenya originally, and I asked him where he is from, where he comes from, and he said he's from Sudan, Southern Sudan. So I said, oh yeah, we're neighbors and all that. And so the older man tried to interject, but I said what we're doing here in the streets. I went to explain what we're doing here in the street, and I went to offer him a book. He liked the vibe, but he declined to take the book because the supervisor stood there in front of him and everything. And so I repeated that when he was in Africa, yeah, there's a way he was thinking, but since he's left there and come here, traveling to a new land, he's seen different things, and so it's changed. That must have affected his perspective about life and how he sees life now. It's not the same as he saw life while he was there, and he agreed to it. Yeah, of course, it's changed a lot. And I said, and that's what happens when we expose ourselves to reading and studying. Our horizon or our perception of things is completely changed. We can't, and so the older man interjected and said, oh, I know so many Kenyans, but I've never seen a Kenyan like this one. Yeah, I said, yeah, true, you may not have come across a Kenyan like myself, because probably the Kenyans you would have interacted with, you only maybe interacted at the level of, what food you eat, how's the politics in your country and everything. But here, I'm bringing something different. Maybe you never had this. And so rightly, you have said that you never met a Kenyan like this. But obviously, we're here to educate each other on the street, so that people may have new perspectives about life and everything. And so with that one, I just repeat it again. If you read, you get to know much more. Knowledge is power, and obviously, you never stop learning. Every day is a school day. And I met another man who was from America but lives here now. He's Asian looking, and he was asking me about the set of people who were in front of us, the Chinese people who were there. He said, oh, because he thought we were with them. And he said, oh, Falun Gong. So I happen to have known about Falun Gong, that set of Chinese people. It's a proscribed sect in China. They are not allowed to practice. In fact, they are in exile right now, and that's why they they kind of try to show the bad part of China, persecutions and all those kind of things. And so I said, yeah, I know a bit of Falun Gong, but not really a lot, but I know they are prescribed in China. And yeah, so we spoke about it. And afterwards, I said, but, so he said, as the conversation progressed, he said to me that he's a Christian. I said, but we are not with them. We are doing something else. I said, so what are you doing then? So I said to him, we are here, we are giving out this book, The Great Controversy, and many other books here. And this Great Controversy, it details this, and that. And basically, according to this statue here, so he was very interested with the banner again. So he went around the banner, explaining everything. He said, actually, I'm a Catholic. Yeah, I said, and he said, I'm surprised. I've never heard these things. As I was talking about the reformers and the Dark Ages and all that. He said he never heard these things. And I said to him, I said the reason why he may never heard about many things Christian-wise is because the Roman Catholic Church does not encourage its followers to read the Bible. In fact, it prefers to read the Bible for them as a priest and regurgitate that to them. And obviously, that's how many of the errors entered into Christendom and all that, because people were not read for themselves. He was so excited with all these things that we were talking about, because we covered even geopolitics and everything. And he mentioned about Gaza and Israel, and he said in America we have this sort of Christians, this sort of Christian people. They are somehow different because their belief is somehow aligned or much more emotionally connected with Israel and everything. And so we discussed all that, and afterwards he was very happy to pick up the books, and he said he was going to read the books. And I said, yeah, power to you, knowledge is power. Expand your reading, and you'll discover a lot that you never knew.
I had some conversations back at Trafalgar Square. 2 conversations. I'll summarize them. There was one with a Jehovah's Witness lady who was taken aback with the statue. She was taking photographs, and initially she, again, how our friends, the Jehovah's Witnesses, speak, and she was a bit disapproving of the whole affair. But she took photos, and she came to me and she said, oh, we had copied them. And I said, well, I don't know what element we would have copied from the Jehovah's Witness. And I said, are you talking about Daniel chapter 2? Unless you are saying, no, it's not about that, but still you are copied that. And I think it's the element, and maybe I'll give the element of street evangelism, maybe. But I just thought that we have copied nothing from the Jehovah's Witnesses. We have a mandate. We have been told to go ye therefore, and this is biblical, and it's not a Jehovah's Witness prophecy. And I don't agree with the most important part of the prophecy as you preach it. In fact, you're hiding the ball, but the conversation went around who's the king of the north and all that. But the point was, by the time she left, she had a lot to think. But some of the Jehovah's Witnesses, they are not very open to an actual exchange. But I thought I would mention also, there's a couple of people who came to me, I think they said they were father and son. And they were Scottish. The father sounded very Scottish, but I think the son was a bit diluted in his accent. He didn't exude the Scottish accent. But what I wanted to say is, it was amazing. It was very important. If I had gone to London just to speak to him alone, it would have been worth it. That's why I'm mentioning it. We spoke, and they were looking at the banner. They asked me what it was. We ended up at the Daniel statue again, and I just showed them in quick fashion, without going into the actual details of the conversation, how Daniel reviewed that future, and I walked them through the empires. But also, I went straight using that statue to Revelation 13 and to Revelation, basically Babylon, and I used the Saxagismal system and the number 666 to tie together both pagan Rome and papal Rome, especially with the number 666. But what was so fascinating about his son, he was very sharp, and the father was also very astute. But basically, they were right on the ball. They had not had the prophecy. They were right on the ball with the history. They knew Cyrus and Darius, and it was a very, very fruitful discussion. And I think the young man was joking because I said Daniel revealed everything about what's happening now. While we were talking, someone came and asked me where the big easy was, and I said, you haven't got a clue. I said, oh, maybe Daniel didn't reveal that, and said, I'm just joking. But basically, they were really, really engaged. But what was even more fascinating and surprising is the amount of knowledge they had about the historical subjects without them knowing the prophecy. They knew all about the history that we're mentioning and made it a lot easy. And it was a conversation of just agreement and nothing. And they were seeing very quickly that I had proofs. So about the Roman numerals and how they all amounted to 666, and about again the identity of the beast being 666, and obviously the Babylonian empire's religious system, which was based on the premise that they are the gods of the universe, 360 degrees. Without going into the breakdown, it will be a subject for another day, but it was a very fascinating engagement, and we found nothing to disagree with each other and a lot to agree. I didn't ask them what their background was, but they got the books and they promised that they would read them. But yeah, in conclusion, yesterday again was very difficult, and but it was very wonderful, and I'm hoping through this God will have spoken both to us to encourage us, but also to the listeners of this video, that it's never a waste to work for God. Maybe we could have gone there earlier, but has not revealed that. Maybe it could have been more beneficial for going there earlier. We don't know that. But all we know is God's work was done yesterday, and God was glorified. And it is in the book Patriarchs and Prophets that Sister White says God has always tried his people in the furnace of affliction. It is in the heat of the furnace that the dross is separated from the true gold of Christian character. Jesus watches the tests, and he knows what is needed to purify the precious metal, and that's us, that it may reflect the radiance of his love. It is by close testing trials that God disciplines his servants. He sees that some have powers which may be used to advance his work, and he puts these people upon trial. In his providence, he brings them into positions that test their character and reveal defects and weaknesses that have been hidden from their own knowledge. He gives them opportunity to correct these defects and to fit themselves for service. He knows their own, he shows them their own weaknesses and teaches them to lean upon him, for he is their only help and safeguard. Thus, his object is attained. They are educated, trained, and disciplined, prepared to fulfill the grand purpose for which their powers were given them. When God calls them to action, they are ready, and heaven's angels can unite with them in the work to be accomplished on the earth. So it is out of affliction that God trains the workers, rather than what the devil had intended them to be as a discouragement. They are more of an encouragement. They are more to shape the Christian character in us, and they are more to work patience in us, the work of patience. God bless you.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints,